recorded on this computer. Okay. So this week I was going to do a review. So hopefully there's a lot of newcomers or beginners on Blue Iris on this week. My idea was, let me just share my screen. So I went back to some of the older webinars like Network IP Camera 101. And this is like when we started this Friday webinar journey. And I just added some more content. I'm leveraging the forum more. So just tightening up the details as well as documenting it instead of just a webinar so that you can get in two forums. So hopefully you guys can troubleshoot, connect your cameras and get your cameras working well, i.e. no choppiness, no stuttering, no loss of signal, those types of issues. So let's get started. So again, so to get to the forum, just go to the home page of Blue Iris and just scroll to the bottom. And there is the forum link. Visit official user forum. Now I open up the content, well, the onboarding content in particular, the stuff that I'm working on right now, so that whether you registered or not registered, you can have access. So I don't want that to be a hindrance. And so that's how you get to the content. And so whether you log in or don't log in, onboarding is where this new content is. And if you do log in, you get a little bit better user interface. It's, it's clear and stuff like that. So then you go from the board index. These are the standard ones. This is the one I'm working on right now, onboarding. There'll be more topics. I'm gonna deep dive into camera connections, how to connect the cameras. And then I'm gonna deep dive into camera stream optimizations. And this should be fairly fast because I believe the document is fairly clear. And as always, if you have feedback on the content, please share it because all feedback is welcome. And the way to do so is just send me an email and support. That's probably the easiest way. So let's go into connecting cameras. That's always a problem area. So introduction, I talk about single streams as well as dual streams, and there's some history behind like why cameras are providing multiple streams, especially the higher resolutions. That's just conflict and tension between providing deep clarity from the resolutions of the cameras, the high resolutions, versus providing a good user experience on mobile devices and web interfaces like remote access. And so that's the whole idea behind it. But that being said, how you connect cameras, it's pretty much the same process. And the only difference is if there are multiple streams, you can now provide those URLs to get access to those streams and allow Blue Iris to connect and take advantage of the streams using the network IP camera configuration dialog. So how Blue Iris leverages the different streams, I just talked about that. So specifically, so keep in mind, like when you connect the dual streams, this is what Blue Iris does with it. The high resolution, the main streams, the high resolution goes direct to disk if you have that turned on. Single camera live viewing and playback is always in the high resolution. The idea is like, if you're trying to investigate something, you probably want real details and clarity. And so in single camera view, the high resolution pops in. And then if you have audio recordings, that goes into the mainstream as well. The substreams are leveraged for like the mosaic, the all camera view, which is typically what is shown in Blue Iris for most users. Why isn't my mouse moving? Come on, mouse. Here we go. I have my cameras off right now just because I want to save on CPU usage. But in the mosaic view, because you have so many cameras, low resolution is fine because the view is quite small anyways. That's the basic idea behind that. And then motion detection is done in with the substreams and the snapshots are also part of the substream. So that kind of breaks out like how and when we use the different streams. Okay, so here's a dialog. We made significant improvements. That's fine. All right, step one. So you can just always just type in the username and password for your camera and hit find inspect. Now, the way Blue Iris works is it requires some dependencies here. So like if the cameras have one of the protocols and it's using it, like first of all, are those protocols turned on the camera itself? And what I mean by those protocols like WS Discovery or UPnP, the universal plug and play, if that's true, and your routers are also enable those protocols, then Blue Iris will find those cameras on the network and it'll just populate, it'll just show to you as a list. You can just click on the one that you typed in the username and password for, and boom, it'll just connect. Now, those are a lot of ifs because, there's a lot of security issues associated with these protocols. And so like most ISP routers, like my AT&T router has UPnP, you can't even turn it on. Like AT&T won't allow it. But like I have a mesh network internally to my house, and because it's an internal network, that vendor allows UPnP. So it's hit or miss. So find and inspect may find a whole bunch of stuff, or find and inspect may not find anything, and that's fine. If that's the case, if we don't find anything, then you just add information to Blue Iris, and Blue Iris will do the rest. So the first thing is IP address, username, password. Since you install the cameras onto your network, you should know this IP address. For some reason you don't, you could use Advanced Port Scanner to find that address and just populate that value and hit find and inspect. At this point, Blue Iris is going to leverage both port 80, because some camera vendors use port 80 for ONVIF, and others may use the default 8999. Either way, if either one of those are accessible with ONVIF, Blue Iris will find it. And that's important. That's ideal, actually, just because you'll know right away. And I put the screenshots so that you don't have to I don't have to do a demo right now. So if you do the find inspect and the camera has ONVIF, which is golden, you get the information, like Blue Iris will pull the information from the camera and make your lives a lot easier in connecting the camera as well as the capabilities of the camera. And what I mean by that is like all this stuff is being pulled in from this particular camera, especially the RTSP URIs. And trying to figure this stuff out is like one of the biggest hurdles in connecting cameras. And so that's why ONVIF is so helpful. So when you look for cameras, make sure that it has ONVIF support, because that makes your life a lot easier. And then in addition to the streams and getting access to the streams, all this other information comes in as well. I mean, it can come in. Like some vendors may not, they may choose, vendors choose what they want to share, not share via ONVIF, but most of them share the URIs as well as the presets. So all the PTZ presets, which are probably easier to set on the cameras app, you can set them there, and then Blue Iris can just pull them right in. So that's why ONVIF is so valuable. Okay, so working further, so once that's done, you could hit close. The list boxes populate with the URL streams, and all you do is select, and it just works. Like it came from ONVIF, it came from the camera. You put it in here. You put in the username, password. The ports will be defined by the ONVIF connection as well. So this will be set like what it's usually 554, but it could be 8554. It could be 10554. You never know. Whatever it is, Blue Iris will find that information and set it correctly. And all you have to do is hit OK, and the camera should connect. And one thing I've discovered, one ONVIF gotcha that I just recently discovered during this troubleshooting exercise was vendors are now providing a layer of security associated with the ONVIF access. So when I first tried to get onto this is a Hikvision camera, obviously. When I first tried to get on, I just checked on OnVIF. I mean, enable OnVIF, and it gave me very limited information. It didn't give all this details. Like this is from another camera, but anyways, like Hikvision similarly will provide a lot of details. It was very sparse what information was provided. Like the URL, even the URI streams for the camera streams was not provided. And so, with Ken's help, we realized like the username and password that's associated with the camera, you have to provide that access at administrator level to OnVIF. Some vendors can, like I'm not saying all vendors do this, but some do. So that's a gotcha you have to think about. And once you do that, that username and password, then boom, like all the stuff comes in, just like I explained before, and connecting cameras becomes easy peasy. Okay. Okay, so now suppose it doesn't have OnVIF and all this stuff does not happen. Then well, the first thing you should do is check if you have the right IP address. And so Blue Iris allows you to do that. So this step 2B is all about if all that amazing advantages of OnVIF does not happen. And the first thing you have to check is the IP address. So go back to the video tab of the camera, click on the link, and does the browser come up with the login page for the camera? If it doesn't, then you know that this IP address that you specified is incorrect. And then you can also check the username and password, because if that login page comes up, you can enter in the username and password, and then you've confirmed for sure that at least the top half, these values are correct. But the OnVIF port may exist or may not exist. Like it could be that 899 and port 80 aren't the OnVIF port, or it could be that they don't have OnVIF support. So, which you don't know yet. Okay, so if the browser times out, this could either indicate the IP address is incorrect or port 80 is not open on your camera. At this point is when you may have to use advanced port scanner and scan your network and see what all ports are available on your camera. So they might have OnVIF, and if they do, it could be on a different port. So we have to figure out what those values are. So that's where we're at. So step 3. So if you're stuck and you don't have OnVIF, then you use advanced port scanner or look at the documentation even and find out what ports are available on your camera. And then that's where you would enter. That's why I highlighted this part of the dialogue for step 3. It's trying to figure out what is the RTSP port, what is the OnVIF port, if it exists. Okay. And then if the OnVIF port does exist and you did find it, and then once again, you can just go back to the top and just connect and specify the URL, RTSP URLs, and it'll just automatically connect. And then step 4. So step 4 is so there's a couple reasons for step 4. So step 4 is like you did make an OnVIF connection, you did get all the PTZ stuff, you did get the URIs, but like and this might be where you stop. You might stop at step 3 at first, and then you start using the cameras and the PTZ isn't working as well as like there might be a bug with the PTZ integration from OnVIF, or you might want two-way audio, like other capabilities that may not have come in with OnVIF. It's possible that we've already troubleshooted it and figured those things out. And at that point, you might want to consider changing generic and model to make and model of your camera, if it exists, or something similar, and see if that gets you the two-way audio, see if that improves a PTZ situation that you're coming across that's causing an issue. So yeah, so that's when make and model becomes important. And it's also additive. So whatever Blue Iris pulls from OnVIF is still going to remain, but in addition to that, all the additional stuff that we did behind the scenes will be added so that the full functionality of the camera can be leveraged in Blue Iris. And then when you do step 4, you don't hit find and inspect anymore. You hit OK. The other reason you would use step 4 is if there's no OnVIF connection and you have nothing. Like you don't have, all you have is the IP address, username, password. You don't know what the URIs are for the streams, and so if you choose a make and model, it might populate the correct streams as well. And so if you don't have OnVIF, then this is a very viable solution for trying to get your cameras connected. And if you're here and you still doesn't work, well, that's when you want to reach out to us. And this is oftentimes when we ask you guys to put your cameras on the internet, like on the WAN. Give us a username, password, and then we go in and try to figure out what we can do to connect your cameras. Okay, so that's connecting cameras, all step by step, all outlined with details. So hopefully this will help everyone out that's listening right now. The other piece to the puzzle, like when you're getting your cameras up and running, is after they're connected, you might have streaming issues. And what I mean by that is we get tickets associated with, let's wait for the document to come up. So the tickets associated with it's choppy, the streams are choppy, lagging in time, stuttering, loses signal. And I'll keep building on this as you know, as we resolve more and more tickets. But you know, the first part is connecting the cameras. The second part is it providing a good user experience? Is the video smooth? Is the playback smooth? Those types of issues. So in this part of the document, well, first I try to explain like a common, oftentimes when these issues pop up, you guys will respond, however, the camera is up and working fine in the camera vendor's app. And this is the reason why. The issue here is the vendor's app is pulling streams from a proprietary port and protocol. Like if you do advanced port scan on your cameras, there'll be other ports open, like 554s for RT. The standards will be open, like 80 and 8999 maybe, and 554. But you'll see other ports like 8000 and whatever. And those are the ports that are being used by the app of the vendors oftentimes. And so they've optimized it for delivering quality stream. And then because it's an app, it's active. Like because you open the app and open the camera from that app, it's an active stream. And so they've optimized all the bandwidth and network connections, blah, 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 to make sure that that's a quality experience. Now those ports are not available to Blue Iris. Like we're a VMS system, and so we have to passively keep viewing all the time. And we have access to the default ports like 80 and 899 and 554. So that's why, just because it works, I mean, it's good that you confirmed that it works on the network, because the camera's broken, the Blue Iris can't do anything. But this is why it may work in the camera app, but definitely not work in Blue Iris. So how do you resolve it? So first thing is you have to diagnose the problem. So like, how do you know if you got a problem and where the problem lies? So with the camera, if it's a specific camera, you can just go to the general tab, okay? And then all the stats are right here. And it tells you right away whether your streams are live. Well, the picture tells you whether it's live, obviously, but it tells you how good the streams are, the quality of the mainstream and the substream. And I lay out all the details and what they mean. So the resolution, 2.1 megs, frames per second, 31, keyframe interval, I'll talk about that a little bit later, and then the bit rate. So all these stats are there. Just what you need to keep in mind, like when you see these stats, all you really need to be concerned about is frames per second and keyframe interval per second. So as a general benchmark, if you got greater than 12 frames per second, you probably got a pretty good, video stream. Some users want 30 frames per second, some people want 15. It's a user preference, but I think once it's above 12, this is my opinion, that you have a pretty good stream. Even like above 5, like it might be fine as well. 5 frames per second. In terms of the keyframe interval, like Blue Iris is content if the ratio is above 0.5. Okay. But what we really want is 1.0. And this is kind of my opinion, but the way I look at it is like, unless you have like major network issues or bandwidth issues, like try to get it to 1.0, like make it as easy as possible for Blue Wireless to provide quality streams for your user experience. Okay. So those are some benchmarks, and I'll tell you how to set the cameras so that you get 1.0 as well. So just hold on for that. And then the other aspect is, so this is on a per camera basis, how to get the stats. But if all the cameras are, messing up or whatever, the status camera tabs dialog has a wealth of information. It replicates what's here, and in addition to that, provides all the other cameras. And so I explain what each of the columns means. It's really informative. So you get the IP addresses, you got the resolutions of the mainstream and the substream, hardware acceleration, whether it's on or not. I have an NVIDIA graphics card, so all of mine are N. If you were using Intel, it would be all the cameras would have I. So it tells you that if you're taking advantage of the hardware, it tells you how long the cameras have been up, frames per second, and keyframe intervals, like what I mentioned earlier for the mainstream as well as the substream, the bit rates for the mainstream as well as substream, and all this stuff is kind of cool. Like if you're like once you get the cameras up and it's running and it's smooth, you guys are probably going to be playing with motion and triggers and alerts, and this kind of tells you like in a very concise way like how the cameras are doing, like how many motions came in, of all those motions, how many were triggered, of all the ones that triggered, how many sent an alert. So it provides some really cool stats that allows you to not only see what's going on with the system, but also help you troubleshoot it if you need to. Number of clips posted and webcast. This is more. It's here like webcast represents the number of frames viewed by the web server. So how many if you have a bunch of remote stations, it tells you those stats. No signal is important because if you get that no signal, it'll tell you how often you're getting it. So this is kind of important if you're noticing problems with your camera connectivity. Okay, so if you've gotten this far in your troubleshooting, you should at least have an idea at this point. You should know what your cameras are doing and where they are performing poorly. So now the question is, how do you fix it? Like, say you do have an issue. Say like the frame rate is like 1 frame per second. Say the FPS is like for the keyframes is like 0.25. How do you fix that? So I try to map it by behavior to settings. So like choppy streams. Choppy streams are almost entirely due to camera encoding settings. So here's the thing, like if the cameras are speaking Spanish and Blue Wireless is speaking English, the communication is not going to be, it's not going to be good, right? Like it's not going to happen. It's kind of like, visiting a foreign country and not being able to speak the language. So what does Blue Iris need? Blue Iris needs H.264 and H.265. Those are standards. Those are the only things we can't support. All this other stuff, the 264 plus, the 265 plus, the smart codec, these are proprietary. This is stuff that the camera vendors have done to optimize their networks, and then optimize it so that their apps work really well. We have no control or know what they're doing with these proprietary codecs. So that's the first thing. Make sure that the cameras are set to 264, 265. Camera streams are lagging or sluggish. Almost always. This is because we're not getting enough keyframes. Keyframes are the full resolution of the view of the camera. And this has to be, so I talked about keyframes here being above 0.5, and I really like it to be 1.0. This is what I'm talking about, and this is the artifact that you get. You get lagging or sluggish cameras. So what you want is 1.0. So rule of thumb, make sure the keyframe, like camera vendors might refer to as iframes, so keep that in mind. Interval on your camera equals the FPS of the camera. The only reason you would consider increasing the interval is if the network bandwidth is becoming an issue. So unless you got network issues, just keep with these general rules. Furthermore, keep settings simple such that all the streams have the same FPS, frames per second. Choosing between 30 or 15 is a user preference, like I said before. I think anything above 15 is plenty good, but you might think otherwise, that's fine. So let me give you an example. So like if your camera is set to 30 frames per second, your keyframe interval should be set to 30 frames, like 30, which matches the 30 frames per second. The 30 means send a keyframe every 30 frames. So if you're sending 30 frames per second, that basically means you're sending one keyframe per second. That's basically what this means. But just to keep it really simple, if the FPS is 30, the keyframe interval is 30 as well. You could consider making it 60, like if you have network issues. And that's, so if you double it, that's when you get the 0.5 FPS, which basically means you're getting so the way to think about it is, if you're getting 30 frames per second and you're telling the camera to send a keyframe every 60 frames, that basically means every 2 seconds you're getting a keyframe. Okay. And I gave you another example just so it's crystal clear. If the camera is at 15 frames per second, set the keyframe interval to 15. Hey Ken, if you, I muted you because you were busy, but if you have any other thoughts, please chime in. Okay, so every camera vendor has a different UI. Oh, so just keep in mind, like, it can be kind of tricky. The UI for cameras, they vary considerably, right? But I want to draw attention to I can't even remember who this vendor was, but so here's your scenario. They got 3 streams coming from the camera with different resolutions, and OnVIF will, hopefully give you the streams for all 3, and you can choose the 2 that you want, and the default is 15 frames per second. This is the camera setting. This wasn't anything that the user did, and it's constant bit rate, which is okay. I'll talk about that in a second. And here's the bit rate in terms of bytes per, BPS. And then here's the iframe interval. So like this will kind of mess you up. The default settings are kind of messed up for Blue Iris in terms of Blue Iris, right? So like you got the mainframe at 15, and you got the iframe coming at 30. So that means every 2 seconds, a keyframe is coming from the mainstream, and it gets worse and worse. Like for one of the substreams, it's every 60 frames. So that's 15, 30, 40, 45. So that's every 4 seconds, which is going to be like a really sluggish, really, choppy experience. And then for the last stream, it's 120. This would be, like the burglars came into the house, robbed your house, and left by the time you get an image to like alert on. Like, this is like 5-6 seconds. So based off of these default, rules, like just make sure that the FPS is equal to the keyframe interval. If these are all 15, these should all be 15. Okay. This comes up every so often. Cameras are stuttering or routinely glitching. And this has to do with the keyframes as well. If you have keyframes, like say you have the keyframes is 0.5. So the scenario at the top, like 15 frames per second, iframe is at 30. So the keyframe interval is 0.5. That means you get a keyframe every 2 seconds. If that's the case and you have constant bit rate, like this forces a camera, if the CBR is like too low, like then the camera's got to optimize that keyframe that's coming in. And so it might cause artifacts. And this is what is routinely seen from the user as stuttering or routinely glitching. And the simple fix is switch from CBR to variable bit rate. And in general, like, unless you're having major network issues, like just leave them at optimal settings that works well with Blue Iris. Lost signal, I'm still flushing this out. Like I'm looking at old tickets. This is work in progress. This whole document's work in progress. But I'll give you more tips and tricks here on if you got lost signal and what to do. But at least you can now kind of troubleshoot a little bit based off of camera settings and diagnosing to maybe help you figure this stuff out on your own. Okay. Further optimizations. At this point, you should have good camera connectivity. Now you're ready to optimize your server further. So now you can worry about the CPU. Are you using hardware and stuff like that? So direct to disk has a huge bang for the buck. It takes off a lot of load from the CPU. Just basically dumps the streams, especially your high resolution streams, straight to disk without going through the CPU for re-encoding stuff. That's a huge win. So I don't know of a reason why you would not put direct to disk unless you're troubleshooting, and we'll talk about that in a second. Hardware acceleration, so definitely turn that on, and you can turn that on at the camera level. I mean, at the global level. So global settings, camera tab, turn on whatever hardware you have, and you can also turn it on and off at the camera level. So camera settings, video. It's obviously for me I have it on because I have no problems. But if you're having problems with a particular camera, you to know that whether some issues can be associated with the camera's encoding. I mean, everyone says they're doing H.264, H.265, but everyone's got a slightly different implementation. It should, they're standard, so they should work, but sometimes they don't. And so this is where you might want to turn stuff off at the camera level for hardware decoding. If, for example, one camera has artifacts associated with playback, for example. And I'll talk about that in a second. And so I think that's the end of it. So that's the end of my story. Oh, some final thoughts. So the basic idea is you optimize your camera settings. That's what the top half was. You do direct to disk, and then you do hardware acceleration. Now, if you light up a camera and it's causing problems, the way to troubleshoot is you got to go backwards. So like go from turn off hardware acceleration for that camera, switch to re-encode, and then mess with the settings. And so each one of these, like you don't know when you start, you have no idea where the issue lies. But when you work backward, you can start figuring things out. So like if the hardware acceleration, if you turn it off, do the streams improve, then you know that your hardware just happens. It just happens that it can't talk to that particular camera. And I've seen that with Intel, the Intel acceleration, like in the quick sync in the processor itself. So it happens. And then the other thing is like you can just turn off, go back to re-encode, and that forces the CPU to do all the work to talk to the camera. And so that'll give you a clue to it's probably the camera settings and the conversation between the cameras and the Blue Iris that's causing the problem. So that's hopefully that was helpful. That's all I had for this week, and I'll be basically I'm just going through all the tickets, and I'll keep adding to this and keep adding more topics, and hopefully this will be beneficial to all you guys to resolve your problems, because in general, like, I mean, you guys provide a lot of great ideas as well. And so providing that information back to you guys in the forum, I think we'll go further in terms of helping you guys be successful with Blue Iris. Okay, so that's all I had. We have questions. Okay, let me go to, we have questions, some open questions, and then we have some, let's see, do we have raised hands yet? And we have raised hands. Okay, Hey guys, let me just stop sharing for a second. Okay, Ken, did you want to, any open Q&A questions that are broad-based that you want to address, or should I just go straight to the open hands, raise hands?
I've been keeping up with them actually, so we're fine. Yeah, nothing is, they're starting to pile up. Why don't you just go ahead with the open hands?
Okay.
Raised hands.
Okay. E-Cruise, allowed to talk.
No questions, thank you.
Okay, okay. Jorge, allowed to talk.
I have a camera that is has a person detection, and it's OnVIF compatible. And I wanted to see if you could you know, show me how to add that through Blue Iris.
Yeah, that's fine. That's not.
Yeah, Blue Iris today supports triggering through OnVIF by using the get events from OnVIF. There's an excellent tool called ODM, or the OnVIF Device Manager, free. Once you have that running your camera with OnVIF, you can go to a page in there called Events. And then you can look to see what it's actually sending back to the client for that type of trigger or recognition or whatever it is. And then I don't believe today there's anything specific that Blue Iris is looking for that's related to person detection, but we could easily extend it to look for something specific and maybe pull in, you know, the name and put that into the memo field for the alert as well. So if you install the ODM, go to the events page, find out what it sends for person detection, and then send that information to me, and I can have Blue Iris look for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Jorge.
Thank you.
Alan, allowed to talk.
Good morning. I had a question about hardware acceleration versus H.264 and H.265, because what I actually found, I just realized my pictures, I'm on my wife's account, but anyway, that's not me. The thing I saw in listening to these webinars, I've been playing with settings and trying to optimize things. And I've got a couple of Amcrest cameras and a mix of some other brands. And what I found on CPU usage was, so I had an incompatibility up here where I used H.265. The Blue Iris was showing data at the bit rate coming in on the mainstream, but no frames per second. And so it apparently just wasn't compatible with the H.265 stream from some of these cameras. If I put the camera in H.264, I'd get my FPS back and it would work. Didn't seem to affect the substreams, which was interesting. But in playing with that, what I found was I actually significantly reduced my CPU usage by going to H.265 without hardware acceleration compared to H.264 with hardware acceleration. I'm wondering if that makes any sense.
Well, yes and no. It depends how much you're demanding of the hardware acceleration for other cameras, or if are using for other cameras. There is a limitation ultimately with how much you can push through there. And another user noticed that the way it works, it's one pipeline and it gets pushed through one thread at that point. So it gets aligned to one core of your CPU to usher all the streams into that decoder, because that's the way it works. It can only it's basically it can decode one frame at a time. So when you're splitting it between cameras like that, then it has to multiplex them through one decoder, basically the hardware decoder. So there will be a limit there. But as far as why would H.265 with software be more efficient, it's interesting, remarkable, but I don't really have an answer for that.
Yeah, I know these encodings can be a mess, but Now, also, if I'm direct to disk recording using substreams, does the mainstream even have an effect? Does hardware acceleration have any effect on the mainstream if I'm actually using the substream for motion detection? Should it even matter?
No, the mainstream is not decoded unless you're viewing it like as a solo or full screen window. Otherwise, it's not decoded.
Interesting. I may have to get with you offline then, because it appears mine is, because turning on encoding actually breaks some of my main streams. As I said, they go to 0 frames per second. I have a substream preview, but something is incompatible there. But if I can use H.265 without hardware encoding turned on that camera, and as soon as I turn on hardware decoding, I lose my main stream, which shouldn't be affected by the setting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't have an immediate answer.
Yeah, it's working for me. If you're curious, I guess I'd be happy to follow up with you and do a remote session and see what it's doing. But I've got it working.
Ideally, you can send to the support email a way to access the camera. Port 80 and port and a temporary login. That's easiest. Possible. You know, it's sometimes difficult to do TeamViewer because a lot of people want to be synchronous with that, and it's not always possible.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Alan. I think that was Alan. Hey, Michael Lamb. How you doing, Michael? Did I hit you? Yeah, you there? Can you? I'm not sure if your audio is working. Okay, well, Michael figures that out. I'll go to Jason. Allowed to talk. Go ahead, Jason.
Good afternoon or good morning. Just a quick question about upgrading. I'm on version 4.8, moved to a new house. I had a bunch of old FOS cams hooked up to the old system. I'm on an older i5 machine. Benefits of moving to the new system as far as utilizing older hardware. I'm not ready to move up to a faster computer at this point. And so one of my hesitations in upgrading was, with the new version of anything, it's usually harder demands on hardware. Would it be beneficial for me to stay on 4.8 or to upgrade to the newer version with older hardware?
Well, this software is designed to be more efficient than version 4 for the software. But yes, I understand your concern about hardware. Yeah, first of all, you want to make sure if you're using any drivers, like for USB cards or whatever, you want to make sure those are available for your new operating system as well. And then if you're on an old version, you may be going from 32 to 64-bit as well, which that impacts a lot of drivers as well. You want to make sure there's 64-bit available for those drivers. If those drivers are written efficiently as well, for your new version of Windows, I don't know why it would be a problem otherwise. So.
Okay, and I may take the leap based on a few of the features that I saw in your demo today.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Jason, you can just download it and try it and see if it works as well.
Yeah.
You have to,
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
You should make sure you back up your version 4 settings. They're designed to go one direction. If you want to go back to version 4, you should restore your settings, not use the settings that were modified by version 5.
Great. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, no worries. Hey, I'm just looking at some of the questions. So the Q&A, the chat stuff. So the substreams aren't stored, don't impact storage. Substreams are stored. So they're in the BVR. It has both the mainstream as well as the substream. I still have an open ticket with Sam with dual streams on a Veil camera on recording the substream. I'm not familiar with the Veil, but if it's a low resolution camera, this is Paul. It's possible. Like FOSCam, same thing. Like they say they got 2 streams, but when you try to connect, only 1 stream is provided. and they're just 1 megapixel cameras anyways, so it didn't really matter. Like it's such a low resolution that there's no reason for like a 1 megapixel camera. There's no reason why you need dual streams for a 1 megapixel camera, because most CPUs today can handle that load anyways. So if that's the issue, then if it's a low resolution camera, this veil, that could be why you're only getting one stream. Okay, back to the questions live. Hey, Michael, you back? No audio, Michael. Oh, there you are, Michael.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, there you are.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay. I got two questions. The first question is that when you're changing all the bit rate, frame rate on the camera and you hit save, do you have to rescanning the camera in the Blue Iris or not? Like, for example, if the camera right now is set at 15 frame per second, and then the bit rate type, change it to VBR, and the I rate, all those things, you change everything, you hit save on the camera. But on the Blue Iris, do you need to rescan it, or is automatic detect?
No, you don't need to reconfigure it. Those things are designed to be dynamic. The only possibility is you might want to, if you're lowering the frame rate, like from 30 to 15 or 10 or something like that, is go into Blue Iris on the video tab and adjust the max frame rate down to 10 or 15 or whatever you set it at. That's not even a requirement. That's only to help free up some memory, is really all that does, is because it's a smaller buffer. That's really it. It would run perfectly fine if you set it to 30 and the camera was only sending 10. It would start to complain that there's a low frame rate and put the yellow caution sign once it got down to like 3 or 5 frames. But no, you don't need to. If just changing the bit rate, you don't need to rescan anything.
Got it. Thank you. And then one more question is that the bit rate, certain camera allow you to change the bit rate from 1200 to up to 8000. Do you recommend what's the best number for that, or just put it right in the middle?
Well, you have to consider first and foremost the overall capacity of your network, and you want to make sure those they all fit basically together with any other traffic you have on your network. If you're doing Netflix and everything else, but then it's really kind of overkill to go that high. When people ask me this question in support email, I kind of put the limit at around 4,000, 4096. Kind of thinking, and much beyond that is not really necessary. If you're using a variable bit rate anyway, it will use more bits to produce a certain quality. So that bit rate becomes just a guidance for the encoder.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, thanks, Michael. I'm going back to some of the open questions. Do I need to choose a CPU for hardware decoding across cameras? So no. So like you see my box, and I have Intel CPU and NVIDIA graphics card. So I have options. So like I can holistically choose NVIDIA for all the cameras, but then I can go to each individual camera, and I can just switch it. I can go to Intel for this one if I wanted to. So depending on what your hardware flexibility is, you can choose on a per camera basis what gets what. How do I find out whether a PC has hardware acceleration available? That's kind of like you gotta like it's the specs of the computer. So
What you want to do here for Intel, there's a great website to go to. It's ARC, like Noah's Ark, ark.intel.com. That has a matrix of all of their CPUs. And what you're looking at is Quick Sync. That's the feature of the CPU that does the encoding and decoding. So then they provide you some relative performance value. So you can even compare chips. You know, is it worth going to this chip versus that chip based on its, 2x quick sync? It may be. For NVIDIA, any NVIDIA card could be used. There is a matrix as well for that, though. Not all cards support multiple streams for decoding or any encoding at all. We tried to find this during one last webinar, and I have to check that we have the correct URL for that. It used to be Googling for NVIDIA decoder matrix would bring it up, but that didn't seem to work last time.
Where is that section in help? Just advanced video. Here it is, advanced video topics, hardware decoding. So it's all here. Is the ARC documents in here too, right, Ken?
Yeah, I just saw it. Yeah, just above, a couple lines.
Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah. So advanced video topics provides more clarity on that. Okay. Thank you, Rob. And okay, back to the live question. Mark Lay, allowed to talk. You're on mute, Mark. JH, allowed to talk, whoever speaks first.
Oh, hey, this is Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Sorry, I missed the unmute button. So if we're doing direct to disk 265, if you decide that you want to do an overlay, is that going to decrypt it, put the overlay in, and then write it to the disk? Is there a penalty there, or should you just do all the overlays in the camera and do direct to disk?
If you're doing direct to disk, the overlays are saved in the BVR file as metadata, actually. So then when you go to replay the video, you can have the overlays added at that point.
Fantastic. Okay, so it's not going to decrypt, insert the overlay into the video stream, and then re-encrypt it onto the hard drive, or re-encode it onto the hard drive, right?
That's only for re-encoding. If you select direct to disk, that doesn't happen. But it does still add it to the video that's displayed live, unless you also turn that off. If you need to save more CPU, you can always turn that off in the video tab in the camera settings as well.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't adding a step of de-encoding, re-encoding to add those overlays.
All right. Yeah, we've
Okay.
recently decoupled whether the overlays are displayed, even if they're not displayed to save CPU, they're still recorded so that you can go back later and have them added to an export, etc.
That's fantastic, because they're much better than what I get natively in most of the cameras. So.
All right.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Let me just do a little demo on that overlay stuff, because that does raise questions, tickets rather. So if you want to turn off on the live view this overlay, do I have it off? Oh, I do have it off. Okay. Camera settings, video, display overlays live. So that's what turns it on in your live view, obviously. And so there it is. It's kind of hard to see, but it's there. And it's also in the main, so it's there. And in the playback, so this is the optimization that Mark was referring to. So like having it off, probably saves you a little bit if your CPU is like blowing up or something. So that's one level. So the live view, and then the other aspect is the recordings, right? When you're playing back stuff. So this comes up too. Like a lot of people say like they turned it off, but they still see it. That's because you can, from the recordings it's a setting as well. So set text, graphics overlay, and then there it is. So overlays, you have on-off controls at the playback as well as the live view. So just to keep that in mind. Okay, thank you. I think JH, did I unmute you, I think? Oh, JH, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a ticket open from January 2nd about a TrendNet camera that had intermittent audio being muted by the UI3 interface. And I sent a BVR clip, didn't know if you had received it. I was wondering if there's any update.
Oh, that's a tough one. January 2nd, you said?
Yeah, and I've been sending emails, haven't heard back from you. You had requested the BVR clip, which I uploaded a couple times. We
I
kept
see them.
missing.
I see them
Yeah.
here. What may have happened, they're actually labeled February 4th. So what may have happened is if you reply to your own email by asking, did we receive it, et cetera. Sorry about it. Just the way it works. I mean, we use a Gmail system, so it actually gets routed to the end of the pile. So what you want to do is try to avoid replying to your own email to ask if we received it, et cetera, because it kind of puts it behind. I apologize for that. But I do see several from you in here that were, it looks like from yesterday. So
Yeah.
we'll try to get to those today.
This one started back in January. I don't know if you recall, we were trying to upload the BVR clip, and there was a 3-day window of opportunity to get it from a website file transfer.
Oh yeah. Okay, now I remember your whole entire case.
Right.
Brian, the UI3 developer, actually addressed that in one of his UI3 updates. So have you kept the Blue Iris up to date? It should actually have moved. Sorry.
That's perfect. I was hoping for something like that. I'll give it a shot.
Yeah. Just update to 5.3.9, and the UI3 that's contained there. It's called an edge filter, and it didn't recognize a DC offset in your audio, and it caused it to cut out like that. So he's just removed that.
Let me ask you one more question then. I have 2 servers. I have a Blue Iris server at home. I have a Blue Iris server in my office, and I keep tech support open. I pay for tech support on one at a time. Can I update the UI3 on the one that doesn't currently have the tech support?
Yeah, all you need is the UI3.zip that comes with any of the.
Yeah, just the UI3.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, sure.
All right, thank you very much. Perfect.
Okay, thanks, JH. Here's another topic that the UI3. So let me just do a little quick demo. So the question is, BI console view is fine, clear. UI3 is a bit blocky. Is there a way to improve the UI3 quality? So let's just revisit that because that does come up a lot. So here's the UI3. So the biggest control you have is at the bottom right. And if you're going to choose a higher resolution one, that's fine, but use VBR over the fixed ones because that tends to provide better quality. Usually for my cameras with the 2 megs on every camera, it times out eventually. Oh, no, that's just an alarm. You'll see the yellow, like I know what you're talking about. I'm sure a lot of people here know what you're talking about, but like once you get that, if it's continuous and it happens a lot and you're getting, it's not smooth. I'm kind of surprised mine is behaving so well right now, maybe because of the internet. But if it does get spotty, the only remedy you have right now is to reduce the resolution on the window, and this forces if it's at 2160, like since mine are 2 meg cameras, it's telling Blue Iris to pull the high resolution, so it's going to try to get the high resolution in here. But when you start going down to lower resolutions, it forces you. It forces Blue Iris to go to the low resolution stream, and that oftentimes helps with the smoothness, the choppiness. So that's just a refresher on the UI3 versus the console. Okay, next open question. Paul allowed it. Oh, I think that was your question. Oh, go ahead, Paul. Jewel, did you have a question? Maybe not. Okay, I guess that's it.
Hi, Sam.
Hello.
Hello?
Yes, we're here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I muted one, but not the other. Thanks for all these webinars. They're really good. I'm the Paul with the problem with the substream getting recorded. I know it's the substream because if I don't record the substream, the recordings go to very high definition because it's a 5 megapixel camera, this Veil, not 1 megapixel. But as soon as I put the substream on, then the low resolution does get recorded. So I'm a bit confused, and I have removed it as you suggested. So I don't know if I'm the only person out there with this problem or there's something odd with this camera, but obviously if I don't use a substream, then the CPU usage goes from about 4 to 14%.
I'm still not quite understanding what the issue is. Are you concerned with the recording size, or is it not behaving the way I described it, where you have a low resolution in the mosaic and you double click and you bounce a high resolution?
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I've got a low resolution in the mosaic because that's pulling it off the substream. If I double clip it, it goes to high resolution. So that's fine.
Okay.
If I play back a recording, then the recording playing back is the same resolution as the substream.
Oh,
and I can see the resolution change because if I go into the camera and alter to D1 or 640 by 480 or something like that, you can see that resolution change. However, if I disable the substream from the camera, then the recorded image on the disk is the same 5 megapixel recording or as the high definition on the screen. So I know Ken was saying only the mainstream gets recorded, but I can definitely see a significant difference in the quality. I mean, it's a massive difference.
Yeah,
so I'm just wondering, am I the only person? Because you told me to take the camera off and reinstall it, and I've done that. So I'm a bit confused as if anybody else has got this problem. Maybe it's an eye opener, or maybe it's just me.
No, it's more simple than that. It's way more simple.
I've got 3 hicks. Sorry.
It's way more simple. Just you click on the playback. Now here's the playback, right? You see my playback? Yep. So I think default is if you have substreams, it's going to play the substream. And the reason for that is because if you have overlays, motion overlays, all the motion overlays are based off of your substreams. And so, you know, if you have different frame rates on your main and sub, like it may not be in sync. So like so that's why we do it. So when you're playing back by default, it's the substream, but you can turn it off. And now it's the high resolution. So it's there. You just got to turn on in playback. You just got to turn off the substream.
Okay. Yep. I've just done that. It wasn't on. It's got use substream if available is not checked.
And the high resolution, hit play. The high resolution comes in, right?
No. If I hit play, it's the low resolution that's there, not the high resolution.
Right, if you're recording direct disk and you have adequate keyframes coming in, you look at the stats for the camera. You should have.
Sorry. Yes, I did do that. I've done that this afternoon. I was getting 0.47 keyframes. I've changed it after while Sam was talking, and it's coming in at 1 keyframe.
Please send a BVR if you haven't done this, and I can you know, check its structure to see if it actually has 2 streams in it. Then we could see maybe it's not even getting.
Okay, so right. Okay, I'll do that then. Thank you very much. So thanks for all these webinars. They're really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Our pleasure. Just to demo like what I was talking about earlier, like when you do the playback and live stream, I mean the quality is obviously gonna be better, which is great. But like you look at the if you have overlays for your motion, it's not in sync, and so that's why we always, by default, if you have substreams, we use the substreams because now it's all synced up, right? So that's the idea. So like, but if you want to see the high resolution, you can always go back, especially for evidence. Like if there's like some issue that you need to like, you know, send to the law enforcement, for example, you always have that available. It's always there. Okay. Gustav, allowed to talk.
Hi. Joining in from Germany, so excuse the bad language. So I was wondering, what is the best disk to record to? I have a SSD hooked up to the system, and I record to the SSD. But is there a better way to do it? That's my question.
I'm sorry, I missed some of that. So can you repeat that, Gustav? Sorry.
Yeah, what would be the best disk to record to? So I have a SSD hooked up and record to the SSD. Is this the best way to do it, or is there a better SSD than a common user desktop SSD?
I have no recommendations on SSD. I don't know if Ken does, but like that's the, as long as you're putting an SSD, like for your new,
Yeah, yeah.
the new folder is most important. The database and the new folder is the most important, because that's like, you know, like all this, the constant reading, all these reads, that means Blue Iris is reading and writing to these files.
Yeah,
and so
I have this folder on an SSD.
yeah, that
And-
should be fine. It's like as long as the new directory is on SSD, that's like the most important thing in your database.
Okay, and is there a very good SSD to recommend, or is a simple SATA interface SSD the best to use?
I have no thoughts on that. Do you, Ken?
No, I'm not a hardware guy, really. I do know many people do use SSD. It would be great for the database, probably. You know, as far as how you know, the wear and tear on the SSD it may become an issue because it's really under constant use, the database folder. But you really want that as fast as possible. There was a major increase, however, in the efficiency of using the database in version 5.3.8. It brought the index.dat file is basically kept in RAM all of the time. So that does reduce some of the wear and tear on the drive. And but we still, it's not necessary to have SSD, but if you have a fast enough hard drive, you're doing fine.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sam, can you hear me?
Yeah. Jorge?
Yes.
Yeah.
So going back to the OnVIF one, can you actually go through and actually go step by step on how to add the event?
Yeah, so I mean, so Ken was talking about the person detection. I'm not sure if that's there, but if you, the other stuff, well, actually, well, let me just go through it. So camera settings, video, configure. So first you have to tell the camera to get it. So get
Okay.
the trigger event. So check that. That's by off by default. So that's step one. Actually, I should make an article on this. So that's, I'm gonna take a note on that. OnVIF triggers from camera. So that's the first part, and then you go to triggers, and then instead of using the Blue Iris motion sensors, you could do both. You can leave this on, but then you have to do cameras, digital input, this one. And this will, if the OnVIF, if that person detection trigger is OnVIF enabled by that camera vendor, then this is how Blue Iris picks it up.
Okay.
And what's the other step? There's one more thing, right, Ken? I forgot. Ken, are you there?
Yeah, sorry. Sometimes you catch me off guard. I'm reading the Q&A. Yeah, you want to, on the video and then the network camera page, you want to make sure that you've configured it as OnVIF. Go to configure.
Oh yeah, we
And
did. Yeah. So this.
Then you want to select the get OnVIF trigger events.
So there's only two locations, the video and then the trigger. This one.
Yep.
Oh, okay. I thought there's like a third one, but okay. That's the way you do it, Jorge.
No, you do need to complete the find inspect process for OnVIF to get the necessary tokens it uses for retrieving the events, and that's the only way to retrieve those.
Did you catch that, Jorge? So like once you check it, do find and inspect again, so that so Blue Iris will pull again all the OnVIF settings, including the triggers. Okay.
Okay, got it.
It's really what
Okay.
it's doing at the bottom of that page. She was showing it has that ONVIF source. Those are the two values down here, video source 1, video source token. Those are the things that may be different camera to camera, and the find and spec will pull those over. And those need to be accurate in order for the get events to work, basically. That's what you're dealing with.
Can those be changed?
You can change them manually if you know what they are, or you can
Okay.
just use the find and spec button and it'll find them automatically. And the other thing is then the ONVIF port does need to be accurate. Find and spec won't work without that being accurate. But it's necessary for the get events to work.
Perfect. Thank you. I got another thing. Maybe for another webinar, you guys could have the UI3 developer do like a presentation. You know, that's just a suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I tried to get him, but he's working during this slot. I'll try again. I'll try again. It's a good idea, though.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Sam.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah. He's pretty savvy too. So I agree. Okay, is that it? 9:15. We got 15 more minutes if we need it. Oh, Bill, allowed to talk. Hey, Bill, you're on mute right now.
Yes, of course. Sorry.
Yep.
I sent you guys something. I had a problem with the gray and the green bars. I don't know, this was a month and a half ago. I finally just ate it because I'm down to 40% CPU usage with 15 cameras. So I guess I shouldn't complain, but I'd really like to get it as low as possible, of course. My problem was when I added the substream on cameras, I finally figured out it's only the cameras that didn't have 265. They were on 264. And you guys had me try a bunch of things like take it off direct to disk and, you know, let it do the encoding. And we tried a couple of different things. I sent you a BVR file and you didn't see the gray and the green bars on it, or Sam didn't, but I see them. So if we're recording something, you know, what could this possibly be? How could, you know, how could adding a substream affect something that's not supposed to be using the substream, right? It's supposed to be full definition. And if it's playing back, how could I see gray and green bars, you know, in the full screen playback and you guys not see them?
One
We could be
easy.
using different decoders. Yeah, Sam's got it right here. Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
Turn these off. Also, be like, are these on? I mean, not this one. This one.
No, I think they're off. I think I went to default and don't you have a none in there?
Yeah. I was gonna say that next. Like, turn that off.
Yeah.
It is off, and you still get the green bars.
Yep. And look at pull down the GPU a minute. I mean, I can try to mine too. Yeah, I don't know. It must just been no.
I'm gonna say that again. It must be what?
It must be no, set to no. Yeah, on the hardware decode.
Right.
I tried every one actually. I mean, most of them don't even work, you know, because this is a Dell and the video's built onto the board, you know. I mean, it's got plenty of CPU. It's an i7 running at 3.4 or something. So I've got the CPU, but to use half of that, you know, this is a dedicated computer i7 just for, you know, Blue Iris. So I can live with 49% CPU, which is what it's at right now. But I'd still like to figure out how this could possibly be. If we're not using, you know, I mean, why would turning on a substream, you know, affect the high def recording? And it's going direct to disk, so really shouldn't.
Well,
it shouldn't be.
let's go
I'm
back a
at a
second.
loss.
Let's go back a second, Bill. So like, where do you see the green bars? Do you see in the live view? No, right?
No, if I click on any of the, yeah, if I do that, I see gray and green bars.
You're definitely on
Sometimes-
a recent version, right? You're not like.
Oh,
on
no, I'm on,
4.1
yeah,
or
I'm on the latest version, sure.
Okay, 'cause there was a bug, like a long time ago, where it might it was decoding some of the substream when it shouldn't have been.
Well, we can open it up again. I mean, I gave up because, you know, like I said, I'm at 49%. It's not losing anything, but it's not fully using the cameras or, you know, or Blue Iris correctly.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've seen this video, the BVR that you sent, but if Sam could tag me in that support email, then I could take a look at it and just make sure that's structured correctly and see what I can determine from that.
I will. I'll open another ticket and we'll start over with the new year. Maybe it's just, you know, 2020 curse.
Yeah, hopefully. All right, thanks, Bill. Yeah, we'll take a look at that. But that's
Thanks,
yeah, that's a weird one. So okay, we'll see. No open questions. Anyone? No raised hands?
Yes, Sam, mine should be up. That's another question if we have time.
Yeah, go ahead, Ellen.
So I've noticed on a number of my cameras, it's a mix of two different brands of inexpensive IP cameras. There's some Foscam R2s and some Amcrest Shield cameras. And I think it's only affecting those. I think they're all H.264 direct-to-disc. What I'm seeing on playback is pixelation, if that's the right word, or tearing on the object in motion. And it appears to be right at the transition from the pre-record buffer to at the motion event. It's almost like what you would expect if you had the overlay of show motion, how it would kind of overlay everything with, you know, the colors to show where it detected the motion, but that is not turned on. I don't get that tearing during a recording, no matter how fast things are moving. It's always at that transition. So if I've got like a 2-second buffer, I get 2 seconds of good video, and then I get like a quarter second of this pixelated transition where only the moving object is messed up, and then it goes back to good video and it stays that way. Any idea where I should be looking? It definitely appears to be an issue with transitioning from the buffer to the, you know, the motion event happens and into the recording.
Yeah, if that's repeatable, very interested to see what that could be. That again rings a bell as a very old bug as well that was fixed. So you're definitely on a newer version as well.
Yeah, I'm actually running the auto update to the latest, not even latest stable. So yeah, I'm on current version.
Yeah, right. Just based on what you said, the symptom sounds like it's recording the pre-record buffer and dropping one of the frames right before the live comes in. So very interested to see if I can reproduce that. And I don't recall another open support ticket on this, and it seems like that would be pretty critical. But yeah, I can make a note to try to test that to see if I can reproduce that issue.
And I'm going to watch it because of what was said in this webinar. I actually just went through and I was running everything at a 2-second iframe, and I just turned everything down to a 1-second iframe. So I'm going to watch it going forward and see if maybe that had an effect, because now I had a lot of these had a 2 to 3 second buffer with a 2-second iframe. So I don't know if getting those extra iframes in there is going to help, but I'll watch it between this week and next week's webinar. And if it's still doing it, even with the changes to the iframe, or either way, I'll try to let you know. Maybe we can do a support ticket and look at it.
Hey, Alan, did you send us a video before, like on a street with a car? Was that you?
Oh, maybe a long time ago, but that one had to do with, I think, a hardware decoding incompatibility. And that was different. That was, it continued to tear as long as that was in motion. And what I'm seeing now is you know, it goes from good to tearing back to good at right around the time of the buffer.
Okay, yeah, because this does sound familiar. Maybe it was probably another guy, but I think I know what you're talking about too. So yeah, okay, we'll take a look.
Would you like me to send a couple of BVRs that show what's happening, maybe to the support address later.
Are you recording dual stream?
I am using substreams. I don't know if I've gone through and turned off. I have no reason to record the substream really. So I think it defaults to on. So it probably is recording dual.
I just want to know what to test exactly. So then did you go, when you're doing playback and notice that issue, is it with the substream or the mainstream playback or both?
So I know I'm seeing it on mainstream playback. How would I force the substream playback?
Oh,
That's in the viewer window. Sam was just showing it earlier.
Okay.
yeah, just click on something and then stop and then use substream if available.
Okay. I'll try some of those. And maybe I'll do an email to support later and give you a BVR file and the answer to that question.
Sounds good, Ellen.
Thanks.
Anything else you wanted to share, Ken? Any news or announcements that?
No, I had nothing prepared for there. Yeah, if there are no other questions, then we could wrap it up a few minutes early. It's fine too.
All right, guys, last call for questions. Otherwise, wow, we can leave early instead of late. Oh wait, all right, Heath, go allowed to talk.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I was just going to chime in. The previous fellow that was talking about the rainbow tearing artifacts. I've been having that problem as well. And I even did a ticket back with you guys a while back. I ended up having to give up on hardware decoding. It's an Intel thing. From what I've seen, it only happens on the P frames. And if you're stepping, with the Control Shift plus sign on the keyboard to advance one frame at a time, you'll see it immediately come in on a P frame after an I frame. And if I'm doing 10 frames per second, there will be 9 jacked up images. And when you hit the full I frame, it's clear again and you're good to go. So it's something with only in those middle intermediate motion frames. I've not been able to determine it has anything to do with the motion trigger or buffer, because it would do it when a car was coming in and I had motion disabled.
And what I'm seeing is these are not using hardware decoding. And I did just check it. It's not occurring on the substream, which would be the one running the decoding anyway, I guess, if I'm directed this on the mainstream. So there should be no acceleration involved in this. So I think this is unrelated to that.
Okay. At the time, I only started doing substreaming like a week or two ago. So for me, it was 2 megapixel and 4 megapixel cameras with the Intel QuickSync decoding, and I'm like, right when something happens and I want it to record the most, that's when the image goes to pieces. So I gave up on it. I'm like, I just rather, my CPU sits at 17% with 9 cameras, 4 megapixel for most of them, and I'm like, not a big deal. So I gave up on the Intel QuickSync, and I did Intel driver updates till I was blue in the face, and it just wasn't something Intel didn't like in the video.
Yeah, really. I'll chime in. Like the Intel decoding and NVIDIA hardware decoding, they're really made to decode streaming. As soon as you ask it to do frame by frame and so on, things can fall apart. Because it tries to keep a pipeline, and then when you try to advance, it might be still trying to decode one of the previous frames actually from previous time, and so whatever. But that so probably should just remove the also BVR option altogether. It seems to cause more problems than it's worth sometimes.
Yeah, I was not even using the also BVR option. I did try it, but didn't really help me much. So. But anyway, I just wanted to chime in on that part, what was happening with me.
This is Jorge Sam. I also have the same problem with one of the cameras too. Same thing.
This artifact with the playback?
Yeah, when the pixelation, when motion, when the same thing as the first person that started this question.
Yeah. With the the transition from pre-triggered to live, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, that's good to know. Thanks for chiming in, Heath. That's good intel
Okay.
too.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine was doing it whether or not it had anything to do with motion triggering. It was just, and I did a big buffer, 20 megabyte buffer. I think I tried different pre-trigger recordings and that just didn't seem to affect it. It was just, you could just be watching it live and a car comes in and parks in the parking lot and it just gets all rainbow pixelated until it hits the next full iframe and then it was happy again. All
Just
right,
to be
thank
clear
you.
for people listening, I mean, that effect could be caused by a couple of things. It could be for dropped frames. That's the one we're most concerned about if there's an actual missing frame. But some of that could be normal if you're using a constant bit rate. You could get some little bit of jaggedness and so on. But if you're actually seeing trails, like you're seeing pieces of the video where it shouldn't be, definitely, that indicates a dropped frame. And we want to discover why that might be happening.
Okay, where would we look closer for a dropped frame? Because I just don't see anywhere for that.
Well, it's really just more by the symptom. I mean, if that's what it
Right.
is.
Okay.
If you send us one of the videos, I could potentially look at the timing, and that could give it away. I mean, if it's showing it's humming along at 10 frames per second, and suddenly there's one that skips 0.2 of a second, then that would also be another smoking gun at that point. So if you want to just send us one of those files as well, I could take a look at it.
Okay. Now, sometimes when I'm doing frame by frame playback for motion, if you're 10 frames per second, sometimes I'll see the same frame repeated twice. So it's really evident on a car and you're framing, you're like, okay, it was about the width of my finger on the screen every frame. And all of a sudden the second frame, it didn't move. And then the next frame, it moved twice as much. And some of that I have seen, it's like the camera is struggling to keep the images in time. And possibly the shutter speed could be coming in and causing it like, I don't have another image for you because I'm waiting for the shutter to expire. And so I've had to kind of increase my shutter speeds well beyond the frame rate to make sure that wasn't happening. Oh, and I had a Hikvision camera, had motion detection enabled on it. Of course, we're using it in Blue Iris. It doesn't need that. And I disabled that and the stuttering frames went away. So it's like the motion detection engine in the camera used the CPU up so bad, it was hesitating on frame playback.
Oh, that's good. That's good insight too. You got a wealth of information for like troubleshooting.
You get what you pay for with a cheap camera. You put a nice $600 Axis in there and you don't touch these kind of problems. You just don't have them. So you got to pick your poison. I can't put $600 cameras in the house, but I do at the job site.
Right.
Right. Thanks for the notes on that bug. I think I've actually been able to reproduce it just now sitting here. So look for an update today.
And I started that. I have to correct one thing. I just realized I did have Intel plus VPP turned on that camera, but it sounds like if you reproduced it, that wasn't the issue. So I've turned it off for now to make sure it's not a acceleration issue. But I've seen the one person who was talking about like the moving cars. I've seen that acceleration and compatibility issue, and this is definitely different. It's not a streaking. It's a like I said, it almost looks like if you just saw the same thing, it's almost like the motion overlay is happening when I don't have it activated.
Right. Hey Heath, can you send me a video of that? An MP4 is fine. The DVR, like with the that artifact with Intel and your cameras, so that
yeah, I can turn it back on and do a stream. It's pretty easy to replicate.
Sweet, because that's an easy way to like diagnose problems.
Yeah, it doesn't happen every time, but I got 2 cameras that it does it the most with, and that was one of those things that I said a second ago. I went into the Hikvision event settings and disabled all on-camera motion detection, turned off the smart event, turned off the dumb events, turned off tamper detection, and those stuttering frames went away. And you can't see CPU load like you can in an Axis camera, but I know that was basically the motion detection on the camera was just more than the camera could do and
Right.
do a 15 frame per second stream at the same time. It just couldn't do it.
Right.
And so once I disabled the onboard motion, those two cameras cleaned up better. So maybe someone else would have the same thing, like, oh, hey, you know, I got a frame that's repeating and not getting an update. You know, try disabling the onboard motion because you're probably not using it anyway. With Blue Iris, you're probably using the built-in triggering.
That's good insight because I never thought of the. You know, I know the accuracy of motion triggers from Blue Iris, but I never thought of the value proposition associated with offloading that from the cameras, which could allow customers to like buy cheaper cameras and just, you know, keep investing in Blue Iris. So it's a nice little value add that I never really thought about. So that's great.
Sure. Yeah, I can. I'll put the quick sync enabled on one of these and grab a little short video of that and send it to you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, Heath. Hey, Jorge,
Sure.
which did you have an Amcrest camera as well? Like when you?
No, I only have Hikvisions here.
Okay. No, thanks, Heath. Yeah, I got you. But Jorge was saying that he had the same problem as Alan. Was it the same camera? Do you have Amcrest?
I have an Amcrest. Yeah, Amcrest.
Okay. Okay, I think that's a wrap for 9:32. It's a perfect time too. So, all right, guys, happy Friday, and thanks for all that feedback and conversation. It's good when we both learned a lot today. So, thank you. Ken, did you want to close with anything?
I want to say thanks again, everybody, and have a great weekend. And look for an update today to help with that bug with the dual streaming playback. I can't believe it. Sometimes I can't believe the bugs survived this long, but thanks for bringing it to my attention today.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Guys.
Bye.